Hi everyone, welcome to another Port Jackson Securities webinar. I am your webinar host, Caitlin Chung, and today we welcome the CEO of Avecho Biotechnology, Dr. Paul Gavin. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today. So today, Paul will go through a presentation with us, and then we will take questions from the audience. Feel free to pop in your questions into the chat whilst Paul's doing his presentation. I will hand it off to you, Paul.
No worries, thank you. Well, hello everyone, good morning. I appreciate your time today. So my name is Dr. Paul Gavin. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Avecho Biotechnology. Avecho is a Melbourne-based biotechnology company with a novel formulation technology called TPM. Now, our background is pharmaceutical drug development for traditional non-cannabis medicines, but today I am going to talk to you about our TPM-enhanced cannabidiol capsule that we've been developing over the last couple of years, and how we're positioning ourselves to take advantage of the lucrative global cannabis market. So next slide, please. And again. So look, I'm starting with a very brief kind of fast fact slide, just to give you all the key messages related to our CBD program. So we are building proprietary differentiated cannabinoid products using our proprietary TPM delivery technology. Now, the first lead asset is a 75 milligram CBD capsule, which we completed with Catalent in the United States in May of last year. We've taken that capsule already and completed our first human clinical trial, which was a phase 1 PK study announced December last year to characterize the drug absorption from the product. We're heading towards a phase 3 clinical trial in Australia in an insomnia-related indication to kick off shortly. We are targeting over-the-counter registration in Australia, which is a kind of huge, unique opportunity for CBD in Australia. And then we'll follow that with registration and licensing for the rest of the world. We already have licenses for both the CBD capsule and TPM in overseas markets in the cannabis space. And we're a bit unique from a biotech perspective that we have a revenue-generating manufacturing business, and we take all that money we make there and pump it back into the R&D. Next slide, please. So right now we're about as focused as we've ever been. So we used to have a whole portfolio of different products, but right now we are focused on this single asset, and our goal is to complete the development, TGA registration and commercialization of our proprietary CBD capsule. Now in doing so, it will create opportunities to license this product and other TPM enhanced dosage forms to third parties for different clinical indications, different geographies, or different markets. And this program is where we're spending the vast majority of our time and resources. So next slide, please. And next slide, please. Look, before I talk about the product itself, I'll just give everyone a bit of a flavor as to why cannabinoids are such a good fit specifically for Avecho. So many countries around the world have now enacted legislation permitting the use of cannabis products for medicinal purposes. Others have also allowing both consumer and recreational markets to kind of grow up. But because cannabis has been illegal for so long, the normal R&D that would have normally occurred into formulation development has been quite minimal. And so initial products on offer to patients are kind of simple oils or even flour. And moving forward, a range of more acceptable pharmaceutical dosage forms are going to be required to fulfill the needs of patients, physicians, and consumers. Next slide, please. However, the cannabinoids themselves suffer from a range of technical issues that make formulation difficult. So cannabinoids that you extract from the plant are all oil-soluble molecules that have poor solubility in water. And like other oil-soluble molecules, they have very poor oral absorption. So only 3 to 8% of what the cannabinoids that you actually eat are ever ingested for any kind of benefit. The remaining 90% highly metabolized and excreted. And this presents real challenges for developing formulations that can deliver cannabinoids to the body efficiently. Now, if you can increase cannabinoid absorption, you can potentially have a product with greater therapeutic effect. You can shoot for new clinical indications that have been previously untreatable because they require really high doses. You can have the patient take less, which is obviously a big cost saving to them because it's still a very expensive drug. And from our side, you can really provide commercial differentiation and have a product that has all these improved attributes compared to the rest of the products on market, especially those in the unregistered space. Next slide, please. And so that's really where we come in. So Avecho has had a proprietary platform delivery technology called TPM for many years. It's derived from vitamin E. It's very safe. When you add it to systems containing water, whether that's a formulation for the stomach, the TPM self-assembles into tiny nanoparticles less than the width of a human hair, and you can fill them full of drug. And they work especially well with lipid-soluble molecules with poor oral absorption, like the cannabinoids. And that's essentially what you're looking at in the picture on the left. So the vial on the right is cannabidiol in a liquid that's mostly water, and you can see it's completely insoluble. And obviously something has to be soluble before it can be absorbed by the stomach. The formulation on the left is exactly the same formulation with CBD, just with a little bit of our TPM added. And the TPM self-assembles into these particles, it solubilizes and encapsulates the drug, and then it essentially acts like a Trojan horse, so you can get the drug into the body at much higher rates. Now, when we see that kind of formulation pattern, we're pretty comfortable that we can use our technology to develop both oral dosage forms and topical dosage forms as well. And that's these two graphs here. So the graph in the middle is comparing the absorption of CBD in an animal model. The little red bar is the CBD control. That's CBD in oil, essentially exactly the way it's prescribed to patients in Australia. You can see really minimal absorption from that product. The blue bar on to the right of that is our TPM formulation that significantly increases the bioavailability. And that's from an oral dosage form. The graph on the right is what happens when you put this into a topical gel. So we years ago rebuilt Voltaren using our technology, did clinical trials to show increased absorption. It's now commercialized and sold in a couple of countries with Novartis. We used that same formulation vehicle in this example, and we took out the drug and we put CBD in. And you can see, again, CBD lacking TPM, really poor absorption into the skin. From the formulation containing TPM, you get significant increases in absorption. So both of those examples really show us that our technology allows us to develop CBD and broader cannabinoid products with enhanced absorption, whether taken orally or applied topically. And that, given our background as well in clinical trials and pharmaceutical drug development, we really decided to pursue formal CBD pharmaceutical development, looking towards product registration. Next slide, please. So this is the product we've been building really now over the last 2.5 years. So the formulation itself was initially developed across Australia and Denmark. The experiment that you saw earlier was conducted in Denmark that showed increased absorption in animals. We took that prototype formulation and we engaged Catalent in the US, who are the world's biggest soft gel capsule manufacturer. They turned our oil into a pharmaceutical soft gel. Each capsule contains 75 milligrams of ultra pure synthetic CBD. So we aren't going near any of the cannabinoids from botanical origin. Pharmaceutical drug development, we understand synthetics. Synthetics are preferred. You don't have any of the variables of, it was sunny today and rainy this week and the crops have changed. Pharmaceutical industry understands synthetic drugs. And so we're working with the synthetics for this product. The product shows really good stability so far. So it is another dirty little secret of the medicinal cannabis industry that the cannabinoids are chemically very unstable. We had to build in a number of different layers of formulation to keep the CBD from degrading because, again, shooting for pharmaceutical registration, you need a 2-year shelf life. So it has to be rock solid. And so far, the product's completed, the first batches have completed their accelerated stress conditions for 6 months at 40 degrees. They're on ongoing stability. They've passed 1 year at room temp and they look really, really good. The product went into a phase 1 PK study, which I'll talk about in a sec, late last year to characterize the absorption profile. As mentioned at the start, we're in the final steps of finishing the design of the phase 3 trial that will be conducted here. And on successful completion of that, we'll be seeking TGA approval as an over-the-counter medicine. Now, this is a completely new opportunity for Australia. Nowhere else in the world's really doing it this way. The TGA is very uncomfortable with the medicinal cannabis industry operating through these loopholes, special access scheme and the like. They've incentivized us to do proper pharmaceutical development by descheduling CBD. And if you can prove it works and you can prove it's safe, then anyone will be able to walk into any pharmacy in Australia and buy the CBD product rather than having to go to a GP, get a prescription and start to accumulate costs that way. Now, the product itself is already the subject of 2 patents. They're in PCT phase. International search reports look awesome. So we're expecting, 17, 18 years of patent life by the time they're granted. Next slide, please. And so as we announced late last year, this was the design of our phase 1 PK study. Phase 1 PK study is a pivotal part of a TGA or an FDA submission. It characterized the drug absorption from your product. And it's also a pivotal part of a product label. Now, we did a crossover testing 2 doses of our product, 75 and 150 milligrams. The reason we did it that way is one of the criteria for allowing the product to be registered as an over-the-counter medicine is it has to have a maximal daily dose of 150 milligrams. But the TGA also told us they would like to see a dose response. So that's why we've done the 75 and 150. Study went really well, very minimal side effects for anyone, none of concern. The good thing about this study, in addition to being a pivotal part of a regulatory submission, is that it's really important for licensing. So with the completion of this study, what we essentially have is this complete early phase data pack where we've optimized the composition of a formulation, shown it's got differentiation through absorption. We've done all the CMC and the manufacturing piece with Catalent to validate that it can be manufactured at a pharmaceutical standard. And now we have the absorption profile. And so look, while we focus on this product for a sleep-related indication, the product can be just as easily immediately licensed to other parties so that they can jump from our phase 1 into phase 2 clinical trials in indications that are of interest to them. And this would be indications that we don't have the bandwidth or the resources to pursue in parallel. So it just embeds our product in further clinical development programs. Next slide, please. And so, as we've announced, we've elected to go with a sleep-related indication, so insomnia, for this over-the-counter CBD medicine. Now, the minute you do say over-the-counter medicine, you're kind of limiting the number of indications you can pursue. They have to be self-diagnosable and not severe enough that they would need medical supervision. So it essentially came down to a short list of, acute pain, insomnia, anxiety, smoking withdrawal, or maybe symptoms of inflammatory bowel. And the stats here, from a Deloitte's paper, really sort of solidified insomnia for us. Essentially, most of Australia is not sleeping. So 40% of us are getting less sleep than we need. 60% of us are experiencing symptoms 3 to 4 times a week. We're spending $250 million a year in Australia on benzodiazepines and other sleep medications that have unwanted side effects. And it costs the Australian economy $19 billion. So there's plenty of good reasons why a CBD capsule that addresses sleep would have an attractive market in Australia. And I should mention, this is the only time. This CBD over-the-counter opportunity is unique, and it's rare that you would ever look at the Australian market as something that you would develop a product for. You're always shooting for the FDA in the Americas, but the ability to get this over-the-counter is a unique opportunity for Australia, and so it's potentially very attractive. Next slide, please. And so this is the remaining work required for a TGA regulatory submission. There's kind of 3 main pillars to the submission itself that are remaining. There's the chemistry, manufacturing and controls, the CMC. This is a very underappreciated part of a pharmaceutical development program in the market. It's not sexy. It's not as exciting as a phase 3 clinical trial. But I can tell you right now, if you cannot manufacture your product to a pharmaceutical standard reproducibly every single time with a certificate of analysis and a 2-year shelf life, you have no product. Irrespective of whether you pass your phase 3 clinical trial, this stuff is absolutely key. And so we're really comfortable that the work done with Catalent and the DMF associated with our synthetic CBD gives us a head start. We're looking at additional CMOs as well now to tap into other markets, but we are scaling up the manufacturing as we speak. We have to hit 1/10 commercial manufacturing scale. That's used in all the regulatory submissions, and that product as well gets put down onto formal stability, which leads into your shelf life, your expiry date. And so that work's all happening now. The registration batches will be down for stability before the end of the year. And we'll have the CMC dossier for the TGA submission complete next year. Now, while that's happening, we're working on this pivotal phase 3 trial. Now, the study design is just about there. It's taken much longer to finalize than we hoped, really for 2 main reasons. One, it took a long time for the TGA to come back to us with feedback on the program. But secondly, we are being very, very, very careful with the study design to make sure that it is appropriate for the FDA and EMA. So with this over-the-counter medicine, it will be very easy and very tempting to dilute the indication and the trial down to something that is unrecognizable as an insomnia indication, in which case the FDA and the Europeans are going to say, we don't care. But we are very, very firm that this phase 3 trial has to be submissible to the FDA, and the FDA and the Europeans are going to require certain design elements to make that happen. So it'll make the trial a bit costlier, it'll make it a bit longer, but having it admissible to overseas market is worth its weight in gold. Now, we will submit to ethics soon. We expect ethics approval before the end of the quarter. We'll have clinical trial material ready for dosing, end of Q3 or in Q4. We are just working out the timing of that first dose and whether we can get a cohort away before Christmas, because we can't conduct a sleep study over a holiday period and have people partying and drinking and having a good time while recording their sleep. So it'll be a strategic decision as to whether we get a cohort away before Christmas or whether we spend the rest of the year recruiting so that we smash it out first thing in the new year. Now, the final two pieces really are kind of interrelated. So the regulatory piece is obviously positioning all this data in a way that the TGA finds it impossible to say no. And that folds into the commercialization. So Avecho is product development. We are differentiation, patent protection, clinical trials. We are not commercial sales and distribution. So the product will be licensed to someone for the Australian market. We're talking to a couple of candidates right now. We're very comfortable. We're talking to the right people. We hope to have that some finalized soon that we can announce and move forward together. Because once we tick that off, that is a huge piece of ensuring the future commercial success. Next slide, please. And so how do we maximize the value from the work that we've done? I've kind of touched upon it already. I mean, we are really focused on this one product towards sleep, but you know, CBD is unique. It's being prescribed for everything right now. And there's, as I touched upon earlier, we can invest on this pharmaceutical program, but we can license the product immediately to other indications. So I can license it to you for pain and you for anxiety, someone overseas for epilepsy, whatever it might be. I can license it by geography. So every country treats cannabis differently at the moment. So there's the opportunity to carve up the world by jurisdiction to get multiple different licenses. And you can license it by market. So, you know, we're focused on pharmaceuticals. The same product can immediately go into the unregistered medicinal cannabis space. It can go into the CBD supplement space in the UK. It can go into the American wellness space. And all of these things don't need clinical trials. And so there's lots of opportunities to get revenue earlier rather than waiting for pharmaceutical approval. And that's before you even start talking about the huge global cannabis space. I mean, essentially what we've done with the product, we used to have a whole portfolio of different individual products that we were progressing in parallel. We essentially have one product now that is its own pipeline. Next slide, please. And that's essentially unfolding already, the strategy. We've already licensed the CBD capsule to an American pharmaceutical company called Medterra. Medterra are one of America's more profitable CBD companies. They started a pharmaceutical arm called Medterra Pharma, which is now renamed Pearland. They've licensed the product for arthritis. They will pay for the entire development of the US arthritis clinical trial program heading towards registration. If they fail, it costs me nothing. If they succeed, as a first pass, I'll get 22% of everything that they make. So it's a way of you know, getting revenue from an indication that I couldn't pursue myself with from a bandwidth and a resources perspective. The TPM as well, we've got our toe in the water with the recreational cannabis space, licensed to a small Californian startup. They've found that if you include TPM in THC gummies, that their customers get high quicker and high for longer. That's not an industry we will be directly involved in, but we're happy to license you the use of our TPM. And in this agreement, it's another manufacturing play. We'll manufacture and sell the TPM to our partners, and then they'll give us 50% of all their profits. So again, something that could be quite lucrative in the longer term. Next slide, please. And so look, while we are focused on the CBD capsule, really was only a matter of time until we began plugging cannabinoids into other products that we've developed to see whether we could increase absorption using other routes of administration. Not surprisingly, given our background, we started with a gel, and I touched upon it at the start, using the gel we had partners with Novartis as a formulation vehicle. We took the drug out, diclofenac, we put the CBD in, we showed significant increases in absorption. And then we got into a collaborative arrangement with the Lambert Initiative in Sydney, who are Australia's key opinion leaders and foremost researchers on doing proper cannabis research. And so look, we looked at doing a small phase 2 study, osteoarthritis of the fingers and hands, because there's not really a therapy for osteoarthritis of the fingers and hands. It was a small study, 15 people. They applied our gel every day for a month, and every night they recorded their pain, measured their pain. Every night they squeezed a squeeze ball, which recorded their grip strength. And we were just hoping for any kind of signal to show whether CBD would add any value from a topical gel for a pain indication. Next slide, please. And so, yeah, it's fair to say that this trial worked far better than any of us imagined it could. So the graph that you're looking at on the right, so the top line, the line on the top of that graph is grip strength. You can see we had a baseline measurement where we were just measuring them each night without any kind of treatment, and then we started applying the gel for 30 days. Their grip strength significantly increased over those 30 days, and unfortunately for them, started to return to baseline when they stopped using the gel. The bottom two lines on that graph are their pain scores, their worst pain for the day, and then average pain. You can see highly significant reductions in pain over the course of the 30 days, which started to drift back as well. We also saw statistically significant reductions in anxiety, in finger stiffness, in fatigue. A bunch of these patients started resuming activities they hadn't been able to do for a while, lawn bowls, gardening, golf, and we've got a whole lot of them that have remained on the therapy since the conclusion of the trial. And look, on the back of this study, we had pharmaceutical companies reach out to see what we wanted to do with it. We're definitely going to do some larger studies with the Lambert. These may or may not be with a partner. Next slide, please. And so really just quietly, we've started to accumulate this portfolio of cannabinoid products that are sort of have actual differentiation compared to the kind of stuff that's on market now. We've got the CBD capsule for sleep. That'll turn into CBD capsule for further indications, including arthritis, which is already licensed. We've got this osteoarthritis gel now that we'll start to pursue, and that exact same formulation, we're in discussions with dermatologists for use with dermatology. We have our toe in the water with recreational cannabis. We're about to start much broader outreach to the larger North American multi-state organizations on the cannabis side. And we've got an oral oil and a topical gel, which we've recently made available through compounding pharmacy under prescription because we had patients on our studies that really needed to continue therapy. The other piece is really that we've built all these formulations to be chassis. And so as we speak in the lab, we have taken CBD out of all of these formulations and we've replaced it with THC, we've replaced it with CBG, CBN, CBC, all the minor cannabinoids. And so we've just multiplied immediately the number of products that we have available for potential future partnering programs. Next slide, please. Yeah, and so just quickly on the company at the moment, as of the June quarterly, we had $3 million in the bank. That's sufficient to complete all the pivotal manufacturing pieces that I described earlier. It's enough to get the phase 3 clinical trial up and running and recruitment started. It's not enough to complete the entire phase 3 program, but that's where these partnering discussions are very important as well. And so we're pretty comfortable we'll get a partner on board that will help share the cost of the phase 3. Bunch of loyal shareholders, so the top 20 shareholders hold 40% of the company. Next slide, please. And just from a board management perspective, we've got a really experienced board. So Matt McNamara has been in the investment side forever. Very great resource to plug us into where we need to be. There, Greg Collier has been around in the industry forever. His claim to fame is he was CEO of Chemgenics when he sold it for $2 million. Ross Murdoch is the ex-CEO of Avecho, but he is now the CEO of Registrants Biotech in Tasmania, one of Australia's largest cannabis growers and extractors, and there's a lot of synergy there. just on the management side, both Roxanne and myself, CEO and COO, PhDs in biochemistry. We've been with the company for 20 years. We have been involved with every stage of drug development, 35 clinical trials between us. So this team is really well skilled and positioned to help drag this CBD product towards pharmaceutical registration. Look, if we succeed, currently there is only one CBD product approved on the planet with a regulatory agency, and that's Epidiolex. And so we with this CBD product, if we are successful, you know, the kind of world will be our oyster from a licensing perspective. Last slide. And so, yeah, these are the key value drivers. So obviously the phase 3 insomnia program using this oral capsule, you know, we'll start ticking off the news pretty shortly around the study design and the program initiation. The manufacturing piece for the remainder of this year is going to be critical, and that'll set the product up for success. We'll have these satellite studies, phase 2 studies around osteoarthritis using the gel, and we hope to have a few announcements around partnering and licensing, both for the existing products and some of these new dosage forms as well. And so with that, thank you for your time. I know we started a bit late, but yeah, happy for any questions.
Thank you so much, Paul. I didn't know there was so much potential in the market for cannabis, so this is really, really great. For those that came in late, feel free to put your questions into the chat and we will get started. So first of all, I would like to know, are there any side effects to the capsules?
Well, CBD itself is compared to the broad spectrum cannabis has much less side effects. So CBD doesn't have any of the euphoria that comes with THC. So from that perspective, it's a much easier molecule to take, and you will be able to drive and all the rest. From our phase 1 PK study, where obviously safety was a key endpoint, we saw nothing of concern. We had a couple of people describe an upset stomach that lasted for about an hour, but apart from that, no side effects of any concern for anyone. It'll be much more easily tolerated than a lot of the benzodiazepines and you know, rest of it, and these things that you take over the counter for sleep, where you feel hungover for, you know, the first half of the next day.
And have you had any discussions with medical professionals as to whether they would refer the CBD capsule over those sleeping pills, as you mentioned?
Yeah, look, I mean, the physicians at the moment are still very, very skeptical. So medicinal cannabis has really done itself no favors the way it's been positioned over the first couple of years, essentially describing itself as something that will work for everything. It won't work for everything. And so you've got to really treat it like a drug, and you've got to do the clinical trials, and you've got to prove it works. When we prove it works, when we start getting phase 3 clinical trials and products registered, that's when the physicians will really get on board and start to prescribe it. Because once it's approved, it's the seal of approval that it is safe and it does work. Right now, even from our experience with the compounding pharmacy, even for a group like us, which is from biotech and not medicinal cannabis, and we have clinical trial support, we are routinely encountering physicians at the moment that refuse to prescribe cannabis just because they just don't think there's the evidence yet to support its prescribing.
And I know in America, they're so much more open to medicinal cannabis. Is there a really large market over there for CBD capsules? I know you guys are launching the one for arthritis. Is there something that exists there already?
Oh, look, the American market is huge, and it is a bit of a mess, specifically because they have allowed obviously a pharmaceutical market, a medicinal market, a consumer market, a recreational market. Australia is much cleaner that we only have medicinal cannabis, but in the US, CBD is now everywhere. CBDS is in Walmart, you know, it's everywhere. And the consumer products at the moment, it's a bit like the personal care industry. There's a whole lot of claims for it around insomnia and pain and all these other kind of things, but they still don't have the clinical support to accompany the products and really show that they work. So America is a huge opportunity that we're looking at. It's just one that needs a fair bit of strategy to step into appropriately.
Yeah. And will the topical CBD gel be over the counter as well?
At the moment, the TGA's first toe in the water with the over-the-counter CBD is specifically only for oral dosage forms. So the TGA looked around, they did an extensive survey specifically around the safety of CBD, and so they've started with oral. We are all very confident that a topical CBD gel that passes clinical trial you would be able to petition the TGA that it would be an over-the-counter medicine. It's not immediately, but as long as you show safety and efficacy, and the TGA have said, even with the oral, that there would be, if you might make a higher dose, or you might do something, as long as you can scientifically justify it, they will take a look at it. We're all very comfortable that topical CBD could be accepted as an over-the-counter medicine in the future, even though it's currently not.
Yeah. And talking about commercialization, what would be the split you'd be looking at with the potential ANZ partner?
Well, the really awesome thing for us about the ANZ partners that we're talking to is, they're all specialists in the Australian pharmacy scene, and that's what they do. And so, we're discussing at the moment, obviously, kind of royalty rates and upfronts and milestones, and cost sharing for the remainder of the development program. So that's all very, very attractive. But the huge attractive piece for us is that the discussions on the table are all essentially, you help finish the product and get it registered for Australia and New Zealand, and it's your product to commercialize here, but it's my product for the rest of the world. So you help finish it, and then I will license that product, finished product dossier, to the Americas and the Europeans and the Asian markets and wherever else I can.
Yeah. And what do you think the approximate retail price would be?
The CBD product initially in Australia is going to be more expensive than people are used to for an over-the-counter medicine. It just will, specifically because CBD is still very expensive as a drug. So at the moment, I'm hearing people make estimates of anywhere between 80 to 180 bucks for a 1 month supply. That will come down over time. The major limitation for that being cheaper is current scale of manufacturing for the drug. So because there aren't commercial products yet, no one's manufacturing at huge scale. We've already had the discussions with our manufacturer about how that price will drop the minute we start placing orders for Australia, and so it will definitely drop. Having said that, that's still far cheaper than the cost patients are currently experiencing when they go to their GP and then they get their prescription and then they buy their cannabis. They're spending 400 bucks a month kind of at the moment. So we had one poor lady trying to get our gel. She spent $600 going from doctor to doctor, who kept sequentially refusing to write a prescription before she finally found someone. So the ability for someone to wander into a chemist and buy it at that price, while it may seem expensive for a month's supply straight away, is still far cheaper than the way the unregistered cannabis market, medicinal cannabis market, is working in Australia.
Wow. And speaking of manufacturing, where do you guys manufacture all the products?
So it'll be manufactured in the US. So as I say, Catalan are based in the US. We're looking at another couple of complementary options. So yeah, the CBD capsule will be manufactured in the US by a licensed facility that is already manufacturing, FDA products.
Yeah. I think that's all the questions. Yeah, okay. Well, if you guys do have any further questions, please feel free to email me and I can pass them on to Paul. But other than that, thank you so much for Paul for taking your time to speak to us and our audience. It was really, really great to learn about Avecho and everything that you guys are doing. Hopefully we'll see your products over the counter soon and it all goes well. So yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you.